So I'm at another flip house today, and behind me is a plumbing vent. Let's take a closer look. Vent's a little close to that window, and it doesn't look secured to me. Let me see here. Oh, no, definitely not secured. Not secured at all. I could probably spend all day making reels about this plumbing vent and another one on the other side of the house, but instead, I'm just going to call this completely unprofessional and move on. I'm inspecting a house that's around 20 years old. I suspect the roof has been replaced at some point, so it's probably not original. However, I'm on the back side of the house over the detached garage and up against the house here, and I found a few issues I want to point out to you, so check this out. First thing I want to point out is this lifted flashing here. Now, these areas are areas where wind-driven rain can push water up underneath the flashing, or it can come down the roof, and you can see it can probably get in that area right there. This is going on at several places around the property, but this is just one of the areas. Now, the next thing is this counter flashing here should be, and maybe was at one point, sealed along the top, but we don't have any sealant there, so that's an area where water can possibly get through the counter flashing, and then it could penetrate through the flashing below. Not so much related to the roof, but we have some deteriorated caulk and sealant around these windows and around this trim right here. These are all areas where water can possibly get inside the structure. I've seen several areas where we have nails that are pushing through the shingles. This is obviously creating a hole where water can get in the structure here. The fiber cement board siding is pretty much in contact with the roof here. There should be some clearance between roof and siding, about an inch, so that we can avoid water damage in this area. Finally, we have some fasteners here that don't have any caulking on them. These could definitely rust out and create a hole. Now, this is only this section of the roof that I've done. I still have to get on that section over there, and there's probably a lot more. I thought this was pretty funny. I'm inspecting this house, and I found something in the garage. Now, those of you that follow me know that I like to work out, and I recently for Christmas got a heavy bag, and I've been punching on that thing the last couple of weeks. And anyway, I bought a bracket to mount that in my garage, and well, let me show you what I'm looking at. This bracket here is identical to the one that I used to mount my heavy bag. And I can only assume that the homeowner here was trying to hang something relatively heavy. But they used these tiny little screws, and they didn't even barely extend past the drywall and didn't even hit the joist here. This isn't gonna hold anything up. Relax. It's just a painted piece of foam. There's a first time for everything. I don't see a whole lot of firsts, but I am on a new construction house today, and I tell folks all the time that there's always a chance that there could be termites on a new construction house. It's less likely than it is on an older house, but certainly a possibility. Today, let me show you what I'm looking at. This right here appears to be a mud tube for termites. That could be ants. I'm not real sure, but it looks like a termite tube to me, and I'm going to take a screwdriver and pop it open and verify what it is. All right, so I got my screwdriver here. Let's knock this open and see what we see. Oh, that's definitely termites right there. See the little white critters? Termites on a brand new, newly constructed house. It happens. This is what happens when the concrete crew doesn't pick up trash out of the footings when they pour your foundation. You see that? It's a styrofoam cup with a huge void. Look, here's the straw. Shame. That issue's not gonna make your foundation fail, but it does make you wonder, how much other garbage is in my foundation? Something we see quite often is this wood trim that sticks out protruding from the garage door. This one has quite a bit of an overhang, actually, of several inches. But what we like to see over that is some overhead flashing to keep any water deflected away from that and not rot out that piece of wood. Now let's go take a look at what it looks like up there. They didn't even paint it. So not only is it not going to deflect water, but it's eventually going to soak up water and rot out. It looks like it's pressure treated, so it's going to be a long time and it can withstand a lot of weather, but still, it should be painted to prevent it from doing that. And no one would have ever caught that if I didn't get up here on the roof and take a look down there. All wood on the exterior of your home, whether it's pressure treated or not, needs to have paint on it to prevent it from deterioration. So right when I walked out the door, I tripped the GFCI outlet right outside the front door, and this is what happened. Obviously it trips like it's supposed to, but so you can see here in the garage that they painted over the outlets. Here's another one. This one is GFCI protected, and the reset button is completely sealed. So it is unable to be reset unless we cut all of this out, and then maybe it'll work. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a shot. All right, that worked, and I got it to reset just fine, so that's great, but this is why you don't paint over outlets, especially GFCI outlets, because they can lose their function. Check out something inside this panel with me. So here's the breaker for the dryer, and usually they are a 30 amp breaker, so I find it odd that this one is a 40. It's gonna be really easy to compare because we have this 30 right next to it for the oven. So let's take the panel cover off and check it out. Now that we're inside the panel, we see this 30 amp breaker that was for the oven, and we can see what looks like 10 gauge wire, which is appropriate. When we move over here to this 40 amp breaker, we have what also appears to be 10 gauge wire, and I get out my wire tester here just to make sure, and sure enough, it is definitely 10 gauge. 10 gauge wire on this 40 amp breaker. That is undersized. This breaker actually should be changed to a 30 amp. Now, while I'm saying that breaker should be changed to a 30 amp breaker, and it probably should, that is not what my report is going to say, because I am not an electrician, okay? I am going to simply put in my report that that breaker is oversized for the wire, and it needs to be evaluated by an electrician. I'm about to inspect this roof. This house is from 2005, and the roof looks pretty rough from down here. I venture to say it might even be original, but we're going for a closer look, and we'll see what's going on. Already right off the bat, before I even get up there, I'm seeing some damaged shingles down here, and then we got some along the edge over here. Let's see if we can get a little closer. And then right along here, we have quite a bit. Looks like some trees have damaged the edge here. Walking around the corner here, taking a look at this hip cap, and we can see that white shiny stuff is the fiberglass coming through, so all the granules have been worn off in that area, and I can actually see it all throughout the roof a little bit. And judging from ground level, it's probably time for replacement, but we got to get up there and take a look and give a proper assessment. Okay, so now that I'm up here, in a rare circumstance, I get to tell you that the roof doesn't look as bad from roof level as it does from ground level. However, it's still pretty rough. We do have a significant amount of granule loss. I just don't think it's time for replacement right now. It certainly could be. It's going to become problematic pretty soon, but if it's not leaking now, I don't really see any reason to replace it. But maybe some repairs, definitely budget for replacement soon. I'll show you what's going on. So we've got this ridge cap shingle damage. We've got exposed fasteners everywhere, all this granule loss, more exposed fasteners. If we run over here, we got a lifted flange on the water heater flue here. There's a definite place where moisture can get in the property right there. And then this is the back side of the house. We got all this granule loss going on the hip caps. This is the hip cap we looked at from the ground level earlier. It's pretty rough. And we have a fair amount of granule loss going on the surface of the roof too.